You are too old to bodybuild. It is time to hang up the posing trunks. Time for the tall white socks and jean shorts, right? Well, not so fast. Being an older bodybuilder, now I'm not that personally old. I coach a lot of older bodybuilders. I'm 35, so technically, I'm a master's bodybuilder. I always thought back when I was 30 and I turned pro, I was like, I'll probably stop when I'm 35. Once I'm a master's, I won't bodybuild anymore competitively, right? But that's not the case now that I am 35. And I will say over 5 years' time in bodybuilding, it's got to be like dog years, because every year there's so much more challenge in lots of different areas, especially around training. But again, I don't want Father Time to be creeping up on us, and it doesn't mean that your bodybuilding has to necessarily come to an end. At some point for all of us, we're going to step away from the stage, as it inherently has a lot of risk to it, but there's a time that we just need to make adjustments along the way for everything that we do and have supportive things in place for the mature, older bodybuilder. I'm sure once I am 40 and 45, there's going to be further alterations that I need to take place. And there's also times when you want to look towards your older bodybuilders and say, hey, what are y'all doing to keep going? And what would you do differently? Those are positive things to look back on that maybe you should already have in place. So I wanted to talk today about what can you do longevity-wise for the maturing bodybuilder. And this really caters to those that are 35 plus, but a lot of stuff might still have application even if you are a younger bodybuilder and you might have difficulty with training or sleep issues or nutrition aspects and even supplementing. So that's what we're going to get into today. So what can we really do, number one, training-wise? And there's a few things that really are able to adjust, and the things that we see problematic-wise as we get older is aches and pains and stuff hurts, and you just can't just jump into the gym anymore. And that comes to the first point of what can we do is don't train through pain. And being younger, it seems like you had a little elbow pain or knee pain, and the next day you just sleep it off, right? It'd just be better. Now that's not the case. Like if something's bothering you in the gym, this should be a red flag for us, because it's something that's only going to get worse and can lead to injury, can lead to longer times out of the gym. So it's number one is don't train through pain. If something's cropping up, move to a movement that doesn't cause you pain. Well, the beauty of hypertrophy training is it's very forgiving adaptation. We have lots of tools to be able to utilize in the gym, lots of different exercises to utilize to get the same job done. An example is like here, my skull crusher just tears my elbow apart, and I just have to do skull crushers because that's what evidently just only builds triceps. That's not the case, and you have to look at, am I, already picking good exercises that fit my ability to move, and does that profile of the machine or exercise I'm using fit with my ability? So if you have a skull crusher and you're having to be bound into that movement, maybe it's better just, hey, grab a cable and allow it to move more naturally already in your joint plane. So pick a movement that fits within your ability to do so, that doesn't cause pain. If it's something you have in place that always leads back to elbow pain, you're like, have to take a break from it, then you're like, well, now I should be good to do skull crushers again, I'm going to add them back in. Just don't use them. Just don't go back to that movement. As you know, that's just not a good pattern for you. And pain, so if you have, say a shoulder pain, pain is a down regulator of muscle activation around that joint. So what the joint wants to tell all the musculature is, hey, don't contract as hard because we need to be safe. And so now you have a lower muscle activation around that, and also less stability around your joint. So to continue trying to train through it, you're going to end up to a point where you're just not even getting good stimulus to the muscle anymore. So that's the first one. Don't train through pain. Next would be move to a higher rep range. So definitely the increased risk of injury as you get older is going to be a thing. And to get under the squat bar and hit like a 6 rep max, probably going to be could be pretty injurious. And so we don't, that's the other beauty of hypertrophy, is that we have this very broad rep range that you can work within to get the same positive adaptation to grow. And really this could be from 6 to up to like 30 reps. So why do a 6 rep? Why even do a 10 rep? Like if you need to do a 15 rep on something, you absolutely can and get the same positive effect. Now, it might just suck to do 15 or 20 reps because it's going to be very cardiovascularly taxing. But however, if the stop point for you is your joints getting beat up after a few weeks of training, well, that's not sustainable training. And that's what we really should be programming for the older lifter, is something that's sustainable. So adjust your rep range up. Add 5 reps onto what you're normally training if those are problematic for you. And maybe that's just exercise specific. And then within those exercises, you might have more problems just trying to jump into your compound lifts first like you did when you were younger. And I know ideally we want to choose movements that train at longer, put more tension at longer muscle lengths, like doing your squats first or doing a bench press first. But that also prevents a lot of the peripheral tissues from being as warm up, your wrists and elbows and shoulders. So you very much might need to be moving your compound lifts as a secondary movement or even a third movement and doing some isolation movements prior. I would argue maybe it's not quite ideal, but I would say what's even less ideal is getting injured off your first exercise that you do, and that's when commonly you see injuries as your first exercise and it's a compound lift. So transitioning those back. So maybe you leg press first, then you squat. Just an example. Then slow it down. Those explosive movements, moving from an eccentric to a concentric really fast, that puts a lot of tension within the muscle and connective tissue and can be higher risk for injury. It's also, sometimes those movements are also ones that we might not have as much control of. We don't have as much control, you don't have as much stability, and that's also when you might have some inappropriate loading or moving into ranges that you don't have strength in, just unintentionally, and then injury happens. So just slow it down. And we know even for hypertrophy, again, it's a forgiving adaptation. You can move in very slow paces as long as you're approaching close to a failure point. It still has just as much stimulus for you. So moves through your centric slow. You could even pause when the muscle's fully lengthened and then come up forcefully, but within control in your concentric. So that might be a 4-second count on the way down, 1 second pause to a 2-second concentric. Completely fine, still great growth, and you'll have less loading, which is going to be less injurious for you. So that's like at least some training tips to consider. Around the diet, there is a point where what we see in untrained older individuals, there's a term called anabolic resistance. I know, sounds terrible, right? Like, what is that? I don't want it. How do you catch it? And so what you see in older individuals is that the same protein amount when you eat it, it has less response in protein synthesis. Terrible, right? But what they've seen is if you have an older individual that's been weight training, that pretty much abolishes that aspect and you can still have the same response. So that doesn't really apply to the bodybuilder that's been lifting their whole lives. Now, as age, that stuff is just going to decline and that has multiple tudes around it, but I would still just ensure that you are consuming an adequate amount of protein. And that's the thing is with older individuals, protein needs go up a little bit to help retain tissue more. But as bodybuilders, we're probably already consuming quite a bit of protein. And if you're in that 1 gram per pound of body weight, the very high end, maybe 1.5 gram per pound, you're eating completely adequate amount of protein. Another consideration nutrition-wise is just make sure you're getting adequate vitamin D, because that's a common deficiency that I see in a lot of people that I do coach. And vitamin D is, we're finding out we have multiple roles in the body. Immune system function, reproductive function, brain health, bone health, heart health. It just goes across the board. So ensuring that when you do have your labs drawn, that you have a serum 25-hydroxy D pulled, and that you make sure that level is over 40. And that's what you want to look for vitamin D, but also not going over 70, because too much vitamin D can also cause some toxic effects too. So what we usually see is around 2,000 IUs of vitamin D is an adequate amount. And you might need more depending if you have some insufficiency to bring up those levels initially. Nutrition-wise, third point would also be adequate B12. As you get older, you produce less stomach acid, and there's something called intrinsic factor that requires stomach acid to help you absorb vitamin B12. So as you get older, you have less stomach acid, less intrinsic factor, which means less B12 uptake. So you might start needing supplementing with B12. Typically, we consume a lot of B12 through all of our meats as bodybuilders, but you might have lower bioavailability. So supplementation might be there. Again, that's something that you can see in your lab work though. Another one, fiber. Huge. Fiber has so many benefits. We see this across multitudes of epidemiological studies. Cultures that are consuming higher amounts of fiber, for one, have good microbiome diversity, which is a positive thing. We're seeing more research on the microbiome, and having a lot of diverse bugs in the gut is promoting of more health for protecting the gut lining, and also seeing a lot of other things around the brain and thyroid function too that has to do with the gut health. So what can you do to really have great gut health? Is consume enough fiber. It's a basic one. But in bodybuilding, what do we eat? Chicken, white rice, stuff that's pretty devoid of fiber. So making sure you're getting 14 grams per 1,000 calories, or if you're female, 25 grams per day. If you're male, 38 grams per day is about the around what you would be consuming. That should be from a variety of different fiber sources. So having fruits, vegetables, and whole grains in your diet. I know you're saying, gosh, the dietitian in me is coming out, just preaching like the food pyramid, right? Like, come on, John, give me something more nuanced and advanced. And like, well, that's the thing. You have to graduate to the advanced stuff and nail down the basics first. And bodybuilding, most people aren't nailing those basics of eating fruits, vegetables, and whole grain fibers and making sure you have enough fiber. But what you do, that's a very solid aspect. And if you can do that one thing, that's going to cover so much for gut health. Next from there that I would address would be sleep. And this is going to be applied across all age segments. And as you get older, you usually have a earlier bedtime and you start waking up earlier. Also, the quality of sleep can start being diminished. You might be waking up more frequently to pee, or could be around just having some pain when you're sleeping, getting old, right? Training's been beating you up, and you're also more frequent to have some naps. So what can we do around sleep? And a lot of the things that I would tell even younger athletes is, well, for one, sleep is your number one recovery tool. So the better your sleep is, the better your training's going to be, the better your growth is going to be. So keep a good sleep routine, because as you get older, just one night of staying up a little extra later takes you a lot longer to get back to your norm than someone that is younger. So keep that routine really consistent. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, make your room focused for sleep, no distractions. So it means no TV, trying to make sure your windows are maybe blacked out so you're not seeing the neighbor's lights come on. Keep the bedroom for sleep and sex. That's what, I've always heard. Don't have your TV in your bedroom. If you're doing reading and stuff, like I would do that even outside the bedroom. Go to the bedroom once you feel like you are tired. Keep your bedroom cool. And if you are going to nap during the day, make sure it's early in the day so it's not so late that it's going to impact your sleep for later. Then also get out in some sunlight early on. Sleep cycles based around day and nighttime, and getting out in the sunlight can help with setting that rhythm in place. Last thing we need to talk about is supplementation. And as you get older, hormone functions decline, stress levels can be higher even then, and you even see drops off with we're worried about, for guys, we're worried about maybe prostate function, and we just want something to help with cardiovascular health. And so Animal has come out with the new Animal TNT, which is for the mature lifter. And just a few components in it is it has testosterone, which has been clinically studied to increase testosterone level. Now, this is not going to be like a hormone replacement level of testosterone, but it does boost your levels up. If it's for the guy that is looking like, hey, I don't want to do any type of testosterone replacement therapy, what could I take that might have some help in that area? And that could be it. And it's also even shown with using testosterone that an increased in sexual function. And so it's never helps for the spouse. Also, consideration is prostate. As you get older, it's common that men can start having prostate enlargement and issues, and some part of the issue around that is multiple factorial, but one being inflammation of the prostate. Then also that can be androgen driven, so higher amounts of DHT, which is a converting hormone from testosterone. And so we add in Supplementation to TNT, which helps with lowering inflammation of the prostate and also lowering DHT levels. So it could be a benefit around prostate function. We also add in nitrosogene and grapeseed. two things that are great for circulation, increasing nitric oxide levels, and grapeseed's also really helpful for kidney function too. So multitude of organ support. And then we also have a stress blend, which has ashwagandha in it, which can decrease inflammation. It helps you mitigate the stress effects, and it's an adaptogen herb. So if you're feeling stressed, those effects will have less impact in the body. I'm not just talking about mental stress, but all stressors, physical stress, training, eating lots of food. All these things are a total stress load to the body. If you can handle a little bit more stress load, you're going to be able to potentially drive more adaptation. Training stress is what I mean by that. So this is our comprehensive product for the male athlete to cover the needs and be considerate for, for function in the gym, organ function, and trying to have that longevity in your bodybuilding career. So don't think that it's time to hang up your posing shorts or trunks just yet. This lifestyle and why we got into bodybuilding or just training was for something that we love to do. So don't think you need to give up the thing that you really love. You might just have to alter the way that you do it, but continue, because it's something that's really positive in your life. And if that brings happiness, that's ultimately what we're chasing. So anyway, any comments, questions on the new Animal TNT, leave them below. We can answer those for you. And I look to talking to you guys next time. Later.